everybody, and her cousin is going to be the worst.
So I want to just touch on books real quick because we're actually about to get a Fall of Numenor book in November. Yeah, I am going to be picking that up. It's going to be mid-November, but yeah, like I'm really curious to see like how they do it. But yeah, setting up that story, and that's like the only political machination that you see is just what's going on in Numenor.
Farazan planning basically. He's like, if we lose, then it gives for all intents and purposes, he's pulling a Thanatos gambit. If you didn't watch Gargoyles, go watch Gargoyles. But and then no matter how this goes down in his mind, he wins. If Muriel goes off and they win and they help the Southlands reclaim, then the Southlands are in debt to them. If they go off and she gets killed, he's king. If, if they go off, she doesn't get killed, they come back, but they don't win, he can undermine her leadership. He wins no matter what, not knowing that his actions are directly going to cause the complete fall of their empire. But that's neither here nor there. That's coming way down the line. Well, maybe season 3. But yeah, I really like that dynamic. I like the Galadriel dynamic with her. I thought it was very interesting and a very good choice to put specifically a black woman in that part, because Galadriel came in with a lot of big colonizer attitude.
She does.
When she came to Numenor, she comes in real disrespectful and real colonizer, as if they haven't seen y'all for 1,000 years. Why on earth? Because y'all were here once, and they're supposed to bow to you. They got their own kingdom and system, and you're not even trying to respect it. Like, all she had to do, and it kills me because you can see on Muriel's face that she wants to help her. The minute they meet, she wants to help her. But then Galadriel had to open up her mouth, and colonizer bullshit had to come spewing out. And Muriel, for no other reason than she's the queen, and she can't have some random elf coming in here and disrespecting her, had to shut it down. And I thought that was a very clear and very intelligent choice on their part to take the whitest, blondest woman on earth and have her come in the way she does to this gorgeous black woman who's a queen and be disrespectful. That was a really that was a smart choice. It was a subtle choice. I don't know how many people who aren't women and black women specifically caught it, but it was a very smart choice, and I was like, I see what you're doing. I see y'all. I see you.
And I love how Elendil like humbles her.
Yeah.
Where he's just like, look, I get like you come from this way of life, but like we do things completely different here.
And it's been 1,000 years since one of y'all have even set foot on our shore, so you need to take a minute.
And like he educates her though. Like he doesn't like talk down to her at all. Yeah. And like even Muriel like just wants to educate her and like just educates her on like how things are done there.
Yes.
He does it like in a smart way.
Yeah.
Like there's no like bashing
there's
over
no condescension.
Yeah, there's no condescension. There's no there's none of that. Like it's just, hey, you don't know how things go. It's been over 1,000 years since one of you's been here, like you said. So, hey, this is how it goes. And if you don't like it, get out.
You can go.
Like, yeah.
We would love to work with you, but you're not going to come in here and be disrespectful.
No.
And not without consequence.
And
I really like that. Which is the biggest thing, and that was the overall thread before we move on to Arondir and Brownwind, and then finally the situation with Elrond, which is both my favorite storyline, but also the one that gives me the most anxiety because I know how bad it's going to go.
Yeah.
But it is a very smart take on respecting other people's cultures and identities.
Absolutely.
It's a very smart take on not coming in because this is the way it's been. Well, it's not like that anymore. And it's also a smart take on how humans live the shortest lifespans of all of these creatures. So innovation and change are going to happen at a much faster rate.
Yeah.
So you can either accept that and help, or get out of the way.
Exactly.
Because it's not going to be both.
Nope.
And so I thought that was a really interesting way that they touched on that. And I don't think any other media that has these we don't really see it in the MCU with, let's say, the Asgardians, who live so much longer. They can be killed, but they live so much longer than every other species. Mm-hmm. We don't really see how that affects them when they do make friends with people who are, speaking of Durin and Elrond, with people who have a shorter lifespan. So it's interesting to see that affects, that's why the other species don't trust the elves, because they're unchanging. And that stagnancy can also, it means that they're ever beautiful and their realms are ever glorious, but it also can lead to blindness.
Yeah, they get
because
so
nothing ever changes. And so when things don't change, you're either one of two things. You're either unprepared when something like, I don't know, Sauron walks into your backyard and starts making suggestions, or you don't appreciate when you go to a culture like the dwarves, like that of the men, and you see the changes and you don't respect it.
Yeah.
And so I really thought that they did a good job with that. So speaking of elves and heartbreak, Arondir, Theo, Rowan, that moment when Theo ran up to Aaron, well, first of all, there was a whole 2 episodes of me going, please stop endangering people's children.
Yeah.
I was freaking out so bad when Theo disappeared, and all you heard with the final screams of the episode, the final thing you hear in the episode is Arondir screaming for Theo. And I was like, it was that gut-wrenching, a parent's child has gone missing feeling. And then you have it combined with the fact that there's literally been there are fireballs coming out of the sky. That moment was terrifying, especially when you know that like Brownwind is still recovering, and then these fireballs happen and all this stuff goes down and they can't find their kid. And I just love their entire dynamic. Mm-hmm. I loved Arondir from the moment he showed up, and the way he looked at Brownwind, and that whole scene at the well. And that was such a great scene because it told you everything you need to know. Yeah. And what, like 10, maybe 4 or 5 lines?
That, and I love his introduction, though. Like, when he's walking into town and the 2 guys are playing chess, and he's like, he's going to beat you next move.
Yes! Like, he's going, just keep going!
And, like, he just keeps walking, and the guy's like, no, he's not. And then, sure enough, checkmate. Like, yeah. Like, that to me is, like, it just shows, like, how arrogant the elves can be, but like at the same time, like he is like the most humble elf you'll ever meet. Yeah. Like outside of Elrond, like in this era.
Yeah.
Because he has his sense of duty, but he legit cares about the people that he's supposed to protect.
Yeah.
Even if they don't like him.
Yeah, and I thought that was an interesting commentary as well, because there's a commentary going on about policing there.
Yeah.
And also for students of history, it's a commentary about how the Third Reich rose. Especially if you know Tolkien's history, because if you know anything about history, you know that because of World War I, you're course corrected so hard in the opposite direction with Germany specifically that it led to what would become known as the Third Reich.
Yeah.
And because they came down so hard on them, so much harder than they necessarily needed to do, that it led to the rise, just like the First Order in Star Wars. It led to them coming back harder and more. And that's not excusing nothing. Trust me, as a child of multiple ethnicities, Jewish being one of them, trust me, that is not an excuse. But at the same time, you have to. There's a difference between punishment and abuse.
Yeah.
And we see how the way the people of the Southlands feel about the elves that was going to bubble over no matter what happened.
Oh yeah, totally.
That was going to be an issue no matter what happened.
That was
because they felt because somebody 1,000 years ago made a bad choice. Y'all still treating them like trash, like garbage. Yeah. And Arondir is the only one who treats them like people.
Yeah.
He doesn't see them he doesn't see their ethnicity. He sees them as human beings. Yeah. And so that's why he's so much more dedicated and protected because the other elves are doing it because they were told to do it. And you definitely got that sense. They're doing their duty. They're doing it respectfully, but they have no interest in getting to know these people.
No.
They have no interest of walking these streets and getting to know the people in the neighborhood, as it were. Arondir wants to know these people. He wants to understand them. He wants to be there for them. And it's a difference in the way he carries himself and the way he interacts with them. Even in the way he handles, what was that dumb boy who got himself murked by Waldrig? Who kept talking nonsense. You know what I'm talking about, Theo's buddy, who was going to lead him down the path of death. I'm so glad Theo turned out to have common sense. I'm so pleased about that.
Yeah.
But also, and I just love the story. I keep thinking back to, what did Arondir's friend tell him? There's only been 2 instances where elves and humans have gotten together, and it's always a tragedy. And I'm like, well, Elrond exists. Not always. Elrond has always exist, but the odds aren't exactly in their favor. But I just want them to be. I want them to be happy.
Well,
I want them to be happy.
And Arondir or Arondir, however you want to say his name, because they say it multiple times and different times, in the show. He really gains the respect of a few of the humans, in the first few minutes of when you see him. He has the few allies, but it's not until the very end where people are like, oh no, this guy is legit serious and just wants to help and be our friend. And that goes to show you where, it's duty and loyalty to and Arondir's I could go back to Gil-galad and just chill and wait for my ship to Valinor, but he's I can't do that. These people need help. These people need me. And it's similar to the Batman situation where he's not the hero that they deserve. He's the hero they need at that time. And he's that hero. But he's also the hero they deserve because he's just, let's face it, he's a badass. He's just awesome.
Arondir is hands down my favorite character. I have to say, he's just so and Ismael Cruz, Cordova Cruz, his facial expressions, his eyes do so much as an actor.
Yeah.
I cannot begin to explain to you how good of an actor you have to be to give me all of the information with no lines.
Yeah.
And he does it multiple times.
He does not have a lot of lines in that first
Not season. At all. No, he really doesn't. It's all in his face. It's all in his physicality. I love the storyline with him and Brown. I love that their little family came together over the course of the episodes. I love that Theo, because it would have been very easy to have Theo get corrupted by the blade and choose to go after it. And instead, we see him choose to go, no, I'm not playing this game. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. And choose to stay and fight. And I just love that. I love the reunion. I just love their little family. I want nothing but the best for them. And I'm so scared. I was so scared because this is the other thing. They did such a good job, even though none of these characters are actual characters in the books. Not one. But they did such a good job of making me fully invest in their safety that because of them, I care about what happens to the people of the Southlands.
Yeah. And now you see the people of the Southlands are starting to be a little more trusting of elves.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're well, they came to our rescue, even though they lose their home.
Yeah.
Which, okay, real quick, I gotta touch on that. Mordor's creation was epic in every sense of the word. It was so amazing.
It was amazing, and for me, the fact that they did it the exact way it would happen in real life was genius. Like, they actually did the homework, and were like, if you did this, this would cause this. And so that was genius. But the thing for me that I didn't realize, again, until rewatch, Mordor is there, Mount Doom is there the entire series.
Yeah. And it's right there at the watchtower.
Right there. From the first episode, we see it. We don't realize that we're looking at it.
No.
And it's exactly in the same as it looks in the original trilogy, the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. Yeah. And I'm just like,
and that goes to show you the brilliance of this writing team
and the thought process.
Yes. And like, they even have Tolkien's, like, one of Tolkien's, like, grandkids with them, like, to consult on the show. So like, he gets the final say in all the stories.
Yeah.
So
and it's done so well. It's done so well. But that whole scene, oof.
My final thought on Arondir and Bronwyn, though, like, they could have easily gone the Aragorn and
Arwen.
They could have easily gone that route, but I'm so glad that they didn't. Like, they went the subtle, natural build-up route where it's like Aragorn and Arwen, like, they're pretty much eating each other's faces, like, the moment you see them together, and it's annoying.
It feels forced.
Yeah.
Like, when we go back and watch it, I'm like, it feels forced. And the other thing is, in all honesty, these two actors playing Aragorn and Bronwyn, and to a lesser extent Theo, have natural chemistry together. And I do not feel like that Aragorn and Arwen had that chemistry when I go back and watch it. I don't. It's not.
It's very cringe.
It's the forcing of Hermione and Ron being together.
Yeah.
In the Harry Potter films, where it's like they don't have that kind of chemistry together.
No.
I know that's how it is in the books, but their chemistry don't make that. So you either need to change actors, which is you should not because they're perfect, or you need to change that.
Yeah.
That part, like, because it doesn't make any sense. And whereas with this, those two actors together, even when they're standing nowhere near each other at the well, that first scene, the chemistry between them is crackling. Crack-a-lack-a-lack. I was like, I'm like, as soon as I saw the way, I mean, just the way they were standing, I was like, oh my goodness. And it was great because then when they finally confess how they truly feel to each other, it feels earned.
It does. It really does.
It feels absolutely earned. When he goes, I have told you in every way that I can. And I'm like, yep, that feels earned. Somebody said, he's been telling you for 12 years now, but okay. And I'm like, yeah, that's accurate.
But like him willing to sacrifice himself for Theo too.
Oh my God.
Like that to me was like the ultimate I love you right there. And like he looks at Theo as a son.
Yes.
Theo looks at him
100% that's his kid. Yeah. As far as he's concerned, that is the child that he will never be able to have.
Yeah.
And so, or they might be, if they make it through, they might have babies, we'll see. But as far as Arondir is concerned, that's his child, period.
Yeah.
That's it. And that moment with Theo, you see in his face, when he's looking for his mother, but when he finds his mother, he starts immediately looking for him.
Yeah.
And when you see his face and you see that moment where he accepts that this is his father.
Yeah. And then look at how they're willing to like do whatever they can do to like save her life. Like after she gets the bolt in her
shot. Yeah.
Yeah. And even like Theo is so scared to like go in and like help, but like Arondir's like calms him down and says, and he says, we can only do this together. Like together we can save your mother. Yeah.
Yep. It's just really well done.
Yeah.
Is it a perfect show? No, but the no show is perfect.
No.
But the way it's been done has been just so absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
That I believe everything.
Yeah.
I believe every moment and every. Oh, guys, I love that good combo. We're going to talk about the storyline that for me is the most subtle.
Okay.
But in the long run, the most potentially, well, we know it's not even potentially, is the most impactful and problematic story. And it's the Elrond, Doran, Gil-galad, Disa situation. Whew.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Gil-galad and Doran, well, Gil-galad more than Doran the Fourth, not being forthright until absolutely pressed. I did not like, I know why he did it, and they did a good job of showing. Also, and this is a small thing, did you notice that Addai has on the exact same outfit that Gil-galad has on, but it's all in black?
Yeah, he's Gil-galad's brother. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's the same exact outfit.
And they look exactly alike.
They look alike, and the outfits are the exact same, but it's all in black. And I didn't notice it. I didn't notice it. Someone else had to point it out to me, and I was all mad at myself for not catching it. But the stark contrast between King Doran III and how forthright and to the point he is, and saying X, Y, and Z, and this is why we're not doing that. Whereas Gil-galad trying to manipulate, that's so the dirty business of manipulating Elrond's friendship with Doran, lying in Elrond's face, the whole situation, Celebrimbor, which is legit. And Celebrimbor, if you know anything about the books, you know Celebrimbor is desperate to redeem his family name. Because his family they were some of the elves that chose to work with Morgoth and Melkor. So he is desperate, and that desperation led to him being very easily manipulated by Sauron, by Halbrand. But that storyline, I think, gets dismissed a bit because it's like, oh yeah, Elrond and Durin and Disa and all happy fun times and we love them and they ride or die for each other. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, but that storyline is the one that's going to mess up everything going forward, because that specific storyline, that one is the key to everything else that happens for the next 3,000 years in the show, in the books, in the shows, in the movies, everything. Everything bad thing that happens comes directly from Durin and Elrond's friendship.
Yeah,
being used.
And that's sad because I love their dynamic together, especially like that elevator ride scene.
Oh my God!
After the dinner. Or no, it was before the dinner. It was after the contest.
Hurt my heart.
Well, yeah, especially like when Durin looks up at Elrond and says, like, 15 years might have been like 5 minutes for you, but it's been 15 years for me. You missed my wedding. You missed the birth of my children. You missed all of these important parts. And like, you can tell, like, it just breaks Elrond's heart because Elrond like legit cares about this man. Like legit cares about this person.
He loves him.
He does. They are brothers through and through. And you see more of that like as the season goes on, especially that dinner table bit at the like in that, like, that makes me laugh so hard when like him and Durin and Gil-galad are having dinner. And like,
then after you made it up, didn't you?
Yeah. And then he says, well, Disa wanted a new dining room table. And
you tell
like,
her
yeah. And like Elrond just goes with it. And he's just like, all right, cool, it's fine. Like, I don't care. Like,
you tell her that it was me. You tell her I got her at the table.
Exactly. and Durin just like snorts about it too. Like, and then like their introduction like together with that rock splitting contest is one of the most brilliant parts too, because like
everything about their characters and their dynamic too.
Oh yeah. And like, but like we know, because like it has to lead to Gimli and Legolas down the road, like forming that brotherhood again. Mm-hmm. But like getting to that point, it is going to be heartbreaking, especially like when we get towards later seasons in this show, because keep in mind they've only planned 5 seasons altogether. Yeah. So like they have a lot of character development to get through. Something's going to go down. I'm thinking season 3 that starts to split them.
The split, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was always wondering, and for me, that was the weakest part of the storyline for me, even though it's the most impactful. Like, what was Gil-galad's plan? Was he going to invade to steal the mithril if they turned out that they had it? Or was he going to, like, what was the plan? And that for me was the weakest part, because everybody else, I can see why and how they got to where they were. With Gil-galad, I'm like, what is the plan here? Manipulate Elrond into confirming that they have the mithril, and then what? Are you going to trade for it? And if they refuse, are you going to invade for it? Now, I do like that he was like, well, if they don't give it to us, I guess we got to go home. But at the same time, I'm like, but then you're leaving all of Middle Earth to deal with the rot that's starting in your home. So that's not, that's only slightly better, because it's going, like any other disease, it's going to spread past Linden. Yeah. And no one else is going to be prepared. Nobody's going to know that the elves have some weird, freaky disease that's killing off everything, and the only thing that says it stops it is mithril. Nobody's going to know that. They're going to see that their plants are dying, and their crops are dying, and you guys are going to be across the Cimmerian Sea chilling. And so, like, no matter how you slice it, Gil-galad doesn't come off great.
No.
And not that I expect him to, because that's the other thing that Tolkien was really good about, was that no one's perfect. No one. Yeah. Everybody can fail. It's one of the things that he did better than C.S. Lewis, because C.S. Lewis was very much a black and white writer.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, I mean, you only see some redemption when you get to, I want to say, Lucius Pevensey.
Yeah.
When he gets turned into a dragon. But other than that, most of the characters are very firmly, they're good or they're bad. Edmund is also another character who gets a redemption arc, but it's not, they're few and far between. Whereas with Tolkien, he's always like, there's a quote, and I don't know who originally said it, but Tolkien's writing very much reflects it, which is, the best of men are men at best.
Yeah.
And Tolkien's writing very much reflects that. No matter how good a man or woman is, or anybody in between, they're still a person. They're still fallible. And nobody's infallible until they leave this earth. And so, Gil-galad, on the one hand, is trying to prevent the ongoing decline of the elves. Okay, fine. But he's going about it in the most manipulative, backwards way. Which, if he had just been honest if he had just told Galadriel and told Elrond what was going on, and I was like, this is why you need a wife. I'm like, this is why you need a partner. I'm like, you need either a wife or a husband. You need something, because, my dude, if you had a partner who was going, well, wait a minute, there's another way to approach this.
Yeah.
I wonder how much different his choices would have been.
Well,
him not having a partner to sound things off of, and to say, you need to tell them. There's nobody that Gil-galad answers to.
No.
He's it. He's the top of the food chain.
Yeah.
And so he needs someone to tell him, and because of that, we now have this mess. So the mithril will save the elves, but at what cost? Because Durin the Third is right.
Yeah.
Death comes for everyone and everything.
Yeah.
If we dig too far, it's going to cause a bunch of problems, and we see that. So that storyline, the friendship between Elrond and Durin and Disa, is my favorite part of that storyline.
Yeah.
The way it leads to the creation of the rings is phenomenal and so well done and so smart.
Yeah.
But I feel like they stumbled a bit with Gil-galad, and we get nothing of his personality. He is the only character where it could be anybody.
Yeah.
Could be playing that character. And it wouldn't matter. Does that make sense? He's literally the only one where everybody else imprinted so strongly in their characters that I can't see anyone else in that part. And I'm including the people who were cast as characters we've already seen, like Elrond and Galadriel, but they've done such a good job of making those characters their own that I'm like, yeah, okay, I definitely see how we get to Hugo Weaving and Kate Blanchett from here. But with Gil-galad, I'm like, anybody could be playing this, and it wouldn't make a difference because I still have no personality yet.
No, you don't have any investment in his character at all. You just think of him as just kind of this giant douche because that's what he is. Like,
yes,
like
even though he, again, like Galadriel, he's right.
Yeah,
but that's right.
Yeah, no, you're fine because like out of all of the people that you see, like he's the only one that like doesn't have Middle Earth's best interest at heart. Like he just wants to keep the legacy of the elves. That's it. And if he's and he's willing to burn every bridge to get to that point to dub himself as savior of the elves.
Yes, and I thought that was an interesting parallel to both Durin and Halbrand.
Yeah.
Because as Ron said, when the reveal happened, the best villains think that they're the good guys. Halbrand truly thinks that he's going to save Middle Earth. He truly thinks that his way is the only way that can go forward.
Yeah.
He doesn't think he's a bad person.
No.
He doesn't think he's a bad man. With Durin the Third is so pragmatic. He's not just thinking about what happens to the dwarves. He's thinking about the long-term consequences, not just for the dwarves, but for everyone else if they go down there. Because he knows Bow Wow, he was alive, which you forget. You forget that the dwarves don't live as long as the elves, but for a pretty damn long time. So I put good money on a young Durin the Third having been either born right after the last war or fighting in that last war. So he remembers how bad it got. So it's not that he's got a head in the sand, which Gil-galad does. It's that he knows that if you mess with the wrong thing, it's not going to just be us affected. It's going to spread past this point, and it's going to destroy a bunch of things. Go ahead.
He's trying to be an isolationist while also like trying to like open his doors to allies at the same time, because he really does see Elrond as an ally to his son. Like, and he sees that, and
he knows how important that relationship is going to be. Going forward.
But at the same time, he's trying to keep this isolationist manner, not because they want to hoard gold or riches or anything. It's because he wants to protect his people. He wants to protect his kingdom. Gil-galad just wants to like be all flashy about it and everything, whereas like Durin really is a man of the people.
Yeah. And that's the difference. And I think for me, that's why, even though it's the most important storyline in the long run, it's the weakest for me. Of the four main storylines, it's the most important long term. But because Gil-galad is the anchor for that storyline, just like Tar Miriel for the Galadriel storyline, the Numenor storyline, Miriel is the anchor for that storyline, because you're watching her react to Galadriel and Halbrand, and so you believe her reactions. You understand. Same thing. Just like with Durin, she's trying to do what's best, not just for her people, but for everyone, as opposed to being willfully ignorant or choosing to only care about Numenor and what happens with Numenor. Durin and Tamiriel are going, and the worst part for me, knowing what's coming, is that they're going to face the worst consequences when they're the only ones that's trying to do the right thing for everyone.
Exactly.
And of all the characters, those two specifically are going to face the worst consequences of anybody, because they did they tried to do what was best for everybody.
Yeah.
And so,
sad part.
Go ahead.
I said that's the sad part.
For me, I needed Gil-galad to be something other than an aloof manipulator in the shadows.
Yeah.
We saw a brief hint of personality when he was laying into Celebrimbor and Galadriel and Elrond, but it was brief. It was that storyline is just so weak for me. And I'm like, do you even have any idea what's going on in your kingdom? Like, why didn't you know that Southlands had fallen? Or did you not care? Because that's the other thing. You mean to tell me nobody was able to send up a flare, grab a Palantir, call anybody, tell them what's going on? I know that most of the Palantirs were lost, but I believe that they made a point of saying that Lyndon had one. So you mean to tell me that you didn't know that this happened? And if you did know and you just chose not to do anything, that's not great.
No.
Doesn't look so hot.
No.
So to wrap up, what was your favorite thing overall? Like, to wrap up, what's your favorite thing about the show? And what do you want in season 2?
Okay. So I'll go with the season 2 question first, and then I'll tell you what my favorite thing was. The season 2, I want it to be bigger. I want it to be even more epic. Like, I want to see the start of the fall of Numenor and like the start of the foundation of Gondor. Like, that's what I want to see. Like, and another thing, I want to go to Rohan in season 2. I want Rohan established. Because like you could build Helm's Deep and have Helm Hall there, because like they talk about him in the extended cut of Lord of the Rings. Like, I want to see that dude defend Rohan. My favorite thing, I love how positive this show is. Even when it's dark, it is still so positive and so uplifting. But that was Tolkien. That was Tolkien as a writer. He was very positive and uplifting, and like I love just how reverent they are to everything that's come before with Tolkien. So those are my favorite things, and that's what I want to see in season 2.
It's interesting you should say that, because Tolkien went through some things. People forget that man fought in a war, and he came out of it different. He came out of it with PTSD, and he came out of it and his home life wasn't exactly peachy keen before the war. Not because of any kind of like abusive situation like that, but because he had lost a great. I feel like his father had already died by that point, and it was just like him, his mother, and one sibling, and they were the only ones surviving. And this is also during when famine was just rampantly through the countryside. It was not a good time to be alive, and then there was a war.
Yeah.
So he went through some things. But one of the things about Tolkien's works, one of the things that there's a reason I go back to him and Octavia Butler and who's another one who does a really good job of it. And I can see him in my mind's eye. Oh, dude. Oh my God. I'm Frank Herbert.
Yeah.
Is that no matter how dark it is, and it gets dark in all 3 of their works repeatedly, there's always hope. And it's not Pollyanna-ish.
No.
It's not, we'll hope for things to get better. It's your faith has to have feet. Yeah. You have to get on the ground and do things. And so, and you're going to lose people along the way. And some of the people that you thought you knew are going to change. And they're not going to be the people you thought you knew. But it's how you choose to react that defines you. Yeah. And Tolkien, this show very much shows that. Galadriel should have said something about who Halbrand really was. But she was afraid. And that is completely legitimate. She was afraid of what the consequences would be, because it proved everything that Gil-galad said about her right. And so she was afraid. Disa wants what's best for her husband, and Doran wants to prove himself to his father. But he's going about it in the wrong way. And that's human, and that's okay. And Tolkien does such a good job. Nori wants to explore the world, but she does so in a way that genuinely puts her family in danger.
Yeah.
That's completely human. Tolkien does such a great job of balancing those things out. And the show has done such a great job of making these characters fallible and human, but where there's life, there's hope, and they definitely show that as well. And I truly love that. That is my favorite thing about the show overall, is even though I know Numenor is going to fall. I know that I knew the Southlands were going to get destroyed, and I was still shook. I was still shook to my core watching it happen. I know that, yeah, we're going to get Isildur back, but he is going to have gone through some things when we see him again. We know all of this. I don't care, because the hope is there. The writing is there. The acting is phenomenal. And so, and the other thing, one of the biggest things about this, and it's about the show, and it's from a technical point of view, a lot of films, the CGI is not in service to the story. Yeah. Here, the CGI is so subtle and so well done that it is never overwhelming.
No.
You feel like you're in a real place. And that, I think, are my favorite. The hope, the perseverance, you have to get up. I know it's hard. Yeah. And I think that speaks to a lot of people, especially right now in the world, in our current political climate, not just here in the States, but in Britain and Italy and on so many places. It's bad. But as long as there's a remnant, as long as there's life, there's hope. As long as there's one good person who's willing to stand up and say, I'm going to fight for what's right, there is hope. And that is something I truly think we need right now. And I think this show absolutely, it moves me to tears at times.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how much I needed that message.
Yeah.
On my television screen.
My wife and I were just driven to tears by Nori's dad's speech in that final episode.
Oh yeah.
Just about the Harfoots and how like they keep going and everything. Like we were both just like blubbering messes. But like,
oh yeah.
But it was the speech that you needed to hear in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. It gets dark. This show is gonna get dark, but it's
only gonna get darker from here. Yeah.
But there's gonna be a lot of light to it as well. We are still gonna get those light moments and those moments full of hope. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And what I want in season 2, I want Arendelle and Theo and Brownwood to be safe.
That I want to.
I hope we see more of the Harfoots now that Nori is off with the stranger.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose them. I really love Poppy. I want to see her struggling, because Poppy's lost everybody.
She has.
People forget that Poppy's there's a whole sequence where they talk about the fact that her family was killed in a flood.
Yeah.
And so the only family she has left are the Brandyfoots and and Nori is gone. Yeah. So she's got it. I want to see how she grows and changes. I really hope that that's not dropped. I just want to see how these characters grow and change. I want to see the fallout has got to come. Elrond already knows that Galadriel messed up.
Yeah.
He knows her so well. You can tell that they're related. I love that, and that's one of my things, which is another thing that this show has done really well. Male-female friendships.
Yes.
Were done really well on this show.
Yes.
And you can tell that Galadriel and Elrond are best friends. That they're besties, and that not just that they're related, because they are. People forget that they're cousins in the books, but also that they're genuinely best friends. And so he knows. That look on his face on those wings, he was just like, I feel like something terrible has just happened, and I'm not quite sure what. And that was the look on his face, when he came around that corner, I was like, oh no.
Galadriel just smirks at him.
Yeah. But I just want to see more of these friendships deepened, these relationships deepened, And I want to see exactly how this Addai Sauron thing is going to go down, because Addai hates his guts. And and I can't wait to see that power struggle happen, because he legit hates him. He hates him with the power of 1,000 burning suns. He's so hates.
I really hope we see a civil war between like the orcs and those like in Mordor. Like, you know, just like have like the rest of Middle Earth like prepare for it, but like just focus on that and like have that stay out.
When it spills out beyond them. Yeah. And also, and just to touch briefly before we wrap up on the Addai thing, I thought it was really interesting that they found a way. It's something that Force Awakens did really well, and then they never really followed up on it.
Yeah.
But this is the first time that we've seen the orcs, and they're not just mindless beasts or just vicious monsters. We see that they have a culture and a dynamic, and they just want a home. And I'm like, I don't want to feel bad for you. But I kind of do.
Yeah.
I kind of feel bad that you guys were experimented on against your will and made into monsters, and now all you want is to have some place to live where you're not going to get burnt every time you get up in the morning. That's not asking a lot, actually. The way you went about it real bad, but I get it. I get it.
Honestly, I'd be okay like if we didn't see the orcs or Mordor for the rest of this show, because like I just want them to like live their lives like in Mordor.
And not to get pulled into this conflict. And the worst part is that knowing damn well that he's going to enslave, after all the work Addai did to get them a home.
Yeah.
Someone's going to enslave them anyway.
Yeah.
Because people forget that there wasn't a choice. And that's in the books. If you go back and read, that's the books. There wasn't a choice. They literally say he enslaved the orcs. Yeah. That is the line from the books. So they didn't choose him.
No.
And it's all going to fall apart. And I'm just like, all this death and destruction was for nothing. For nothing. And I think it's heartbreaking, but it's real.
Yeah.
It's real. So that is our Lord of the Rings deep dive. Look for Eric's article. He's going to be doing his own kind of recap review of the season. But we wanted to do a deep dive. We wanted to be able to get into it. So we wanted to do a deep dive on video. And thank you all for tuning in. You can find us at PC Uncovered on Twitter and Instagram, popcultureuncovered.com, Pop Culture Uncovered on Facebook and Tumblr and Patreon, where you can become a patron for as little as $1 a month. And if you are a patron, you can choose what topics that we cover on Patreon. Right now, we have several topics up. The lovely Angels and I are going to be doing a deep dive into The Woman King and how costumes and fight and choreography enhance that film, as well as the true history behind the Dahomey. And some of it's great, some of it's not so good, and how the film did not shy away from that. And, of course, you can listen to me, Pete and Armand, on the weekly podcast. You can listen to Allie and Mary and I for Truck Review. And I have a feeling you're going to be seeing Eric a little bit more as we get into more Star Wars and High Republic and Lord of the Rings stuff. So thank you for hanging out. We love you. Be safe. Wear a mask. The pandemic is not over. Wash your hands. Get vaccinated. And be at peace. We love you.
Bye.